I'm here with the founders of Robin. Guys, introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Sam.
And I'm Zach.
The Dunn brothers, and this is not your first company, guys. Before Robin, what did you do?
Sure. So we started a company called One Mighty Roar back in 2009, so it just had its 5th birthday. It was started in college as a way to sort of do apps and websites for a number of clients. So we grew up to about 19 people with that, moved it out here to Boston in the process, and that's what brings us here today.
And as we were just talking with a big investment from outside investors, of how much did you raise?
Zero. Yes, a healthy zero.
And you're going strong, which so that means if I'd only put $1, I could have had an infinite return. No, I could. Actually, I did it wrong. You got an infinite return. If I put a penny in, it would have been a very handsome return. But in any case, so I'm a very happy investor in Robin. Tell us, what's Robin?
So Robin was born out of probably an idea we worked on for the last 2 years of One Mighty Roar, which was basically, we did a lot of events. So when you went to an event, you got an RFID wristband and you could swipe it at different locations throughout a concert, and then the space would know who you were. So you could log into a photo booth by scanning a wristband. So we took that idea of a digital identity for the real world, and we moved it over and used Bluetooth and beacons to basically do presence sensing in the office. So what Robin is this presence sensing for the office, and basically any room can know who you are and who's using it. So right now, a lot of people are using that for room booking, but there's certainly a lot of other applications for it too.
So do people, but you're not doing this where everybody has to be wearing an RFID tag around on their wrist?
No, so that was the cool part.
Yeah, so after doing the event game for a while, we learned that you don't want to have to force people to wear something on their wrist. And so when the iPhone 4S came out, it came with a new version of Bluetooth, which allows basically your phone to function as your identifier.
So who needs wearables when you got your phone?
Basically. And most people have their phone glued to them anyway, so if you see the phone, you can basically assume it's them.
So this is in a sense, they're talking about people talk about two-factor authorization. This is one factor, but if you got your phone, we can do lots of kind of cool stuff with you.
Yeah.
Which sounds like the Internet of People things, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you might say that we even kind of make people connected devices, although that sort of sounds weirdly robotic.
That's right, we were talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger earlier, but
yeah. So, but it does sort of beg the question of like, okay, so if the future of things or everything connects to the internet, how do you designate users? And this is one way that we think you can do that.
So, but there's nothing, this is mobile, but there's nothing saying it couldn't be your watch or whatever.
No.
So you're now into the expansion of possibilities. So what do you see as some of the use cases going forward?
So we're pretty focused on the office in themselves, but we view very much as more and more devices that are connected to the internet are entering the workplace or buildings in general, the big thing is they'll benefit from knowing who's in the space around them. So, the quintessential example of the Internet of Things is kind of a smart home, where when you walk in a room, all of a sudden the lights turn on, the temperature goes just to what you want it, and that's the full breadth of the Internet of Things. But we think it gets a little bit better than that, because much different devices are starting to enter. You've got locks, you've got, a lot of people forget that Chromecast and Apple TV are technically connected devices. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's really a matter of exploring when you walk in a room, maybe it's not just calendar booking, which isn't the peak of what we want to do here.
Well, we'll get back to that in a second.
Yeah. But maybe when you walk in the room, automatically the materials and settings for your meeting in terms of lights, what's on screen, everything else, automatically adjust. So the idea of walking in a room means logging in and thinking about it that way across devices, software, and people.
Well, right now I've been filming a lot of Techstars, and there's always people going in and out. I need to have a little conference room, and they've got this stupid system of a bunch of iPads taped on the outside of the room, and people aren't using it. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. People don't know words like that. You've got a solution to that.
Yeah, so there's when we first started to bring this kind of identity sensing to the office, we very quickly found out that there's almost like a kick-out culture, right? So most people who work in organizations over, let's say, 25 people, a regular part of their day is telling someone to get out of a room, or hey, bartering with them for space, and a lot of these iPad systems, they sort of break the moment that someone forgets to use it. So if simply you just being there is enough to check all the boxes, you get a lot better data, and people can actually start to trust again and not have to kick people out.
And to that point, half the meetings, we've been out and about for about 6 weeks now, and about half the meetings that we're booking through Robin were never on a calendar and never planned. So our suspicions were correct in the fact that people don't quite use the booking systems as they.
Oh, and these are all the places that have these systems, just people don't use them.
Some of them are. Some of them are solely going on their calendars at their desks, which are the least accurate. But then some people with tablets just, they also are experiencing the same thing.
What's going to be, how does this intelligence work? This is beacons, right?
Yes. So the big thing for beacons right now, and here's a good example of one. This is an Estimote beacon, which if you Google beacon is pretty much what'll come up. But beacons are very much a commodity piece of hardware now, and they're essentially just a little chip that emits Bluetooth up to around 100 meters around it, and they can be USB or battery charged for up to 2 years. So basically what these enable is indoor GPS, to really simplify it. So they create little bubbles of Bluetooth that a person can enter, and now their phone or devices that can pick them up are aware of where they are. You see this most heavily in retail right now. Right. In the sense you approach the jeans, and the jeans are 20% off, so you get a coupon sent to your phone.
The dream. Yeah, which is a bit like kind of introducing GPS as a way to let you know where the nearest Starbucks is, instead of saying you no longer have to print out the MapQuest directions. But
right.
We'll get there.
Yeah, and that's sort of, I think, a lot of people's in ad tech's fondest dream, and a lot of people's worst nightmare is, oh my God, I'm going to get flooded now if I bother turning on my phone. Presumably, that's going to go into permissioning systems and other types of privacy effects.
Well, the thing that no one's really talking about is the idea that beacons are not, are very much akin to Wi-Fi, in the sense that it's very much an opt-in, and you have to have an app to interpret the signals that are being broadcasted off. So a really common example, if Macy's outfits their place with beacons, when you walk into Macy's with your iPhone, unless you have an app to pick up Macy's beacons, the Macy's app, nothing's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So there's really not this culture of now I'm going to be spammed everywhere. It's more the things that I find useful with beacons, I can have an app for that.
So Zach, tell me about a current project that's got you excited.
Sure. So right now we're working on polishing up our APIs so that we can get some more developers playing with us. If you think about kind of even outside the office, what we basically have built with the Robin platform is you now have an API for physical space. So you can do things like ask a room who and what is in it. Or even cooler, what if in the future you could write an app that you install onto a room or a building, and that app just anyone walking in and logging into it can experience that as well. We think that's going to be really powerful.
Well, where do you think that the open API goes to? You're putting this on Hacker News, you're doing hackathons, you're just sort of opening up the platform. That's what you see yourself as, a platform, or do you still see yourself as writing specific apps to get going? Or
so we are very much focused on the office and building applications that suit that. That will be where we are for a considerable time. Mm-hmm. However, a lot of these offices that we're going into, there's an engineering department or a developer or two inside that realizes, hey, I can extend what the lobby does, what the conference room does, so they can build on top of the space that they're already in. And as that continues to grow, I think that we'll see some more use cases in kind of museums and maybe non-workplace things. But that is definitely not where we're starting.
We just yesterday interviewed Sravish Sridhar from Convey. I don't know if you guys know Sravish. And Convey is trying to connect, be sort of a single way to connect into the zillions of APIs for GPS, for payment systems, for pushing to cloud or whatever. How comparable a business do you think that your platform would be, or do you believe that will you be on his platform or will he be on yours?
So there is a lot of opportunity in kind of translating, right? Being able to say, this thing needs to talk to this thing. Here's an easy way to do that. You don't have to learn both from scratch. I think that what our focus is if you know what things you want involved, we give you a way of mapping that onto physical space so that you can attach, in Convey's example, the software that they can provide and the hardware APIs that they can provide to a room or a building, and then we offer the layer that allows people to take all of that bundled together and then build on top of that.
I see sort of the natural effect to be sort of like billing and getting into Bitcoin. So if the doctor is charging you, X dollars a minute, or the lawyer is, has a different rate for this or that, I could imagine people, being given a little, their charts. Here's your chart. You walk in, the doctor sees your chart, and the chart happens to have your RFID tag, and then they know that, start the micro payments going, and then it gets sucked out of Bitcoin or something like that. You're not liking that one, Sam, huh?
So, the interesting one, so the most common ideas we hear for the office right now, one is obviously attendance, and that's kind of the low-hanging fruit. You clock in, you clock out. There's a lot of very interesting stuff that can be done in kind of billable hours environments. So like you said, the really cool part for us is more so being able to establish what your relationship with your clients looks like. So yes, a part of that is the billable hours, but the ability to say that this member of your team has spent 12 hours with the client and in what room and at what times. So now you can actually have a physical copy of what your real world relationship with the person looks like.
Kind of going off that too, if kind of like Fitbits and Jawbone showed us anything, it's like if you give people information about how they go about their day, it can affect what the parts that they want to improve. So for example, we're able to tell people individually, because there are privacy concerns here, so we're very careful on that. We could tell you, hey Ty, you spent 8 hours in meetings this week, which is 30% above the average of everyone else in your office. Do with that information what you will, right? Because what a lot of organizations don't realize is just how much of their day is stuck doing stuff that doesn't really matter. Or
I'm wondering, there's the idea of the standing meeting. I could imagine you have the, if we've scheduled for this meeting for a half hour, when we start buzzing you every time you've been away from the, you've been stalling it too long. Any number of things. But you're talking now about behavioral improvements.
Well, we don't look at this like an auditing system, right? Like, so we're very careful to not make a system that allows your boss to say check up on you, right? But as a whole, it is important for an organization to know this week our organization spent 200 man hours total in meetings or doing things in the following rooms. That might be great for your organization, but it also might be a room for improvement that you might not have seen previously.
And I think that, like, in the same way that websites should care very deeply about how their users are going about it, if you think about it, your employees are your office's users, but you have no quantifiable way of seeing or optimizing for them. You just kind of let them fly free. And there's a lot of opportunity to make it a better experience for them.
one of the things that we're finding is with all these people who are building open floor plans, right? They make all these collaborative spaces, and they're like, oh yeah, go sit on the couch, work wherever you want. And on these sprawling campuses, that's actually a problem because you have people who, by going and working in the sort of courtyard, are completely invisible and makes other people hunt for them. So we actually make large space feel much smaller and more,
So there's the ability of the Marauders map to be able to find
Potter,
people.
yes, comes up a lot. Yeah, so I solemnly swear I'm up to no good now. Yeah.
Which makes you the Weasleys, I guess.
Yeah,
All right.
not the right hair color, but we're close, I guess, right? So, but what we found is, if nothing else, giving people awareness of how they and their peers work.
And it seems to me that all the architectural efforts of trying to build community, and you're looking at patterns and usage or something like that, where they'll have the central cafeteria or whatever, just trying to get a intermixing of ideas. That's the kind of thing which could be improved by, knowing how the traffic patterns go, which is just unavailable to anybody else.
Well, you know how they collect that data now?
No.
So there's a thing called bed checks. And in large organizations, some poor intern is handed a clipboard and told to walk around the campus and take notes of what rooms are occupied at that moment, which is a bit like sitting someone down at website analytics and taking 30 seconds of snapshot and then using that to plan an entire year's worth of development.
It sounds to me like when they used to check, the traffic by a traffic light, they would have somebody going by with a clipboard. Well, you can replace that with a wire. And in a sense, you're that same step up by using digital knowledge to take away the boring clerical stuff.
Yeah, and in the process, we're able to make the work day a lot easier for the people who are actually doing it, rather than just the people who are managing it.
Well, I guess you don't have a height, but you are a 2D, or maybe you have height, but you also have the third D. In this case, is time. So you're now able to effectively see the movement of whatever.
Yeah, and we can do, so one way that we can kind of do that in the user's favor is, have you ever left a meeting early? Of course not, but let's say for a second that you did. In spaces that are running Robin, one of the things that we're building on right now is, if we know what's on screen on a side-by-side basis, what if when you left, you were actually emailed, hey Ty, here's the 8 slides that you didn't get to see.
Or
you can read
better yet, even just a receipt for the meeting. Think about how awesome it was the first time you got an Uber receipt, which, aside from the price tag, you look at your exact flight plan, so to speak. So the ability to be present in the things you're doing and not worry about keeping an active record of them because that'll be emailed to you later, should, in our view and our discussion so far, be a very exciting thing for productivity and focus.
How much have you looked at Foursquare as a model for your thoughts, just condensed?
Foursquare, so their newest one, Swarm, is a very interesting one because, it's kind of like every 15 minutes there's a ping to see where your friends are, right? So it's a very cool overview, and actually there's some methodology that they employ in terms of just, raw overlay of where all your friends are generally, there's going to be some parallels there. But for the most part, how they view individual spaces with tips and everything else, I think is a much more consumer approach than we would go.
I was thinking of the Swarm.
Okay, yeah.
It is fascinating though that, so one of the things that we definitely took some cues from on the Foursquare side is the idea that spaces, you should be able to sort of attach details to them. Like, for example, this room, what if we were able to leave the Wi-Fi password available to anyone physically in this room, right? Most people just write that on the wall somewhere or, map it in their head where, HDMI 2 is the one that you need. But what if we could actually push that to people the moment they set foot in a room? There's kind of the cheat sheet, I guess.
Right. We're now getting a quick tour of some of the software at work.
Yeah, so right here we have, this is our Robin HQ, which shows, this is the online dashboard. So basically this has an inventory of all our different rooms, and it can show what's available and what's not. And then from here you can basically browse through all the different people, devices, so we can see all the different people in our organization. We can drill into individual rows. So, you know, this is just a general demo area. So we allow people to, you know, associate calendars with each space. We can have full inventory of beacons. And then when you attach a calendar to a space, what happens is you can start to pull in things like when you walk in a room, that's the calendar that books automatically. So now all of a sudden we play nicely with all calendar booking systems. Right now we're on Google because that's, you know, that's a very good one to start, but there'll certainly be more from there. Yeah, and then obviously on the mobile front, the way you interact with that is the app itself. So we have around 75 organizations with Robin in their hands right now.
Can you show the app?
Yeah. We're in a little weird spot, but you know, so basically we can have an inventory of which rooms are available. With that, you can also see when people are available and available spaces. So now all of a sudden you have a real-time look at how space is being used and what spaces are available. Plus you can dib spaces from afar too, which is a thing we've got coming out soon, and we think that's going to be very fun. Yeah, so that's the current state of affairs we've got now.
Perfect, thanks.